Our next guest gives daily updates on sports and music and is an expert on sneaker culture. He is the host of Hard Pass with Jacques Slade on YouTube. We welcome Jacques Slade onto Hoopsology. What's up, man? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is awesome. I love this intro. It was so professional. You guys are so good at this.
Appreciate it, man. We're big fans of your YouTube channel, and as we're discussing kind of off air, we're newbies, we're kind of novices to sneaker culture, so we wanted to have an expert just to kind of pick your brain and really get introduced to this whole new world that we're hoping to learn more about. So we'll get started and just how you fell in love with your first pair of sneakers and what led you onto this path of just hosting his YouTube channel and being one of the most known influencers kind of in this space.
Oddly enough, my love for sneakers came through the lens of basketball. I had an older cousin that played basketball, and he was just like the idol for all of the younger, that younger generation. And anything that he did, we wanted to do. And basketball was like his main sport. He happened to be really good at basketball, and so we all kind of wanted to be like him. And as a result of that, anything that he wore or any of his friends that he played basketball with wore, we wanted a piece of that. And sneakers was a part of that conversation. We remember them wearing Jordans back then, and so that kind of kick-started the love for sneakers as a way to kind of get a piece of like the older cousin generation and be as good as they were.
And so what was, I guess, the first shoe that like really stuck out in your mind in which you're like, man, I just have to have a pair of these?
Gosh, there's a couple that I remember from back then. So like the Air Max 95 was a big shoe that stuck out to me. The Air Jordan 11 was a big shoe that stuck out to me. And I remember getting a pair of Air Jordan 4s, or maybe it was the Air Jordan 5, from one of my cousin's older friends. One of my cousin's friends, they had basically beat them up playing basketball in them, and they knew like how much I just like admired them playing basketball. So like they gave me their old shoes.
And in terms of, I guess my thing is with sneakers, I'm always conflicted, right? Because I like wearing them, but at the same time, they look so good, and I have this a habit of messing them up and scuffing them up. So I saw that video you posted of I think some resellers walking out with those. They're walking weirdly out of the store with the shoes they just
Yeah.
bought, and I think that would just be me because I'd be like. I don't want to wear these. They look so good. At the same time, part of me is like, I want to show them off. So is there like just forgive me for this might be a ridiculous question, but like is there kind of like I don't know a, a different etiquette in terms of I'm just gonna put these up these sneakers I bought just to look at them or just wearing them out? How do you kind of I guess walk that line in terms of wearing them every day and just keeping them as a collector's item?
I think that's an individual decision. That kind of depends on each individual taste. Like sneakerheads are not really like a monolith. There's different types of sneakerheads. In the U.S., the basketball shoes is a bigger deal, whereas in the UK, trainers are more of a big deal. And so it kind of depends on the type of sneakerhead that you are and what the purpose of the shoe is. A lot of us buy shoes to wear them, and then you just try to make sure you take care of them so they don't look too beat up. But then there's also shoes that you kind of want to beat up, almost as a way of showing that you're a part of the culture. So, like for instance, the Air Jordan 3, it's a great looking shoe, brand new, but you also like to wear it and kind of beat it up a little bit so people know that you're just not wearing it because it's an Air Jordan 3 and like, oh, this is this cool shoe. You're wearing it because you actually love the shoe. It's almost like a love for the shoe versus a collector who keeps the shoe pristine versus a reseller who's trying to resell the shoes. So you have all these different dynamics that go on within the same community. And so there's really not a straight answer for that question outside of really it's up to the individual on whether they want to keep them brand new looking clean or if they want to wear them and show people that they're in it because they love the culture.
Jacques, moving over to kind of the player side of things, in your most recent YouTube video, I think it was, you talked about this week the Trae Young signature shoe coming out. Can you speak to kind of how players are in on developing these shoes with the shoe companies, and then also how shoe companies are looking at kind of interacting with the fans through these shoes, like kind of the like culture of Atlanta, for example, with this Trae Young signature shoe. Can you speak to
Hmm.
that, like maybe specifically with these Trae Youngs, but then also maybe some other examples of how that kind of works in shoe design?
Yeah, for the shoe design, generally what happens when an athlete or a signature athlete signs on to do a signature shoe, they're paired with a designer, and the designer kind of breaks down that athlete's game and finds out the little intricacies and nuances of that player's game. Like Trey Young is fast. He shoots far. He needs to be light on his feet, so he's very nimble. So the designer is going to take all that into account when creating his shoe, and they create a few different versions. And while Trey is in practice, they'll bring them out like these unfinished versions of new ideas that they're trying out. Maybe they add more weight in the back or more weight in the front, or they give him some extra durability at the toe box because maybe they look at Trey's game and they see that he drags his toe, or maybe he needs more stability on top of the shoe because he cuts really fast. So the designers typically find out all of those things about the player's game, and then they're going like back and forth between the player. Player plays in the sample, gives his feedback to the designer. Designer makes changes, and they go back and forth a couple times before they land on a design that they actually like. Now, once they get to that design, that's where like the story of the athlete starts to come together. So they'll dig into Trey's history, the things that he likes. So say Trey is really into Marvel. So maybe they do a Marvel collab with the shoe, or
Mm.
maybe Trey loves barbecue. So they do something with, I don't know, barbecue pits or something like that, that kind of ties his story into the sneaker. And being in Atlanta, there's a great opportunity there. And this is where you see athletes like working within the community. So a signature athlete will get a new shoe, and as part of the rollout of that shoe, they may refurbish a court in one of the neighborhoods there. So they do all of these different things to bring the culture of basketball together with the signature athlete, and in hopes that one, that obviously that it sells, but also as a way to kind of make it aspirational for the community.
Is this something that's pretty unique to basketball and how integrated it is with the community? Because, um, perhaps I'm just ignorant on the subject. Well, definitely I am. But with the like NFL or, with soccer, where you have more specific cleats and things like that, you don't have this type of interaction. I mean, I'm sure athletes have signature cleats and things like that. But is it just something about the NBA that you can wear these on the court or for style that makes it so unique like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. In the NBA, you see the faces of the athlete and their shoes work on the court and off the court, as opposed to baseball where you're wearing cleats, as opposed to football where you're wearing cleats, or soccer where you're wearing cleats. So those don't translate off of the pitch or off of the field. So basketball is very unique in that way, that it allows the athlete to live in both of those worlds.
Awesome. And then kind of along what you were just saying about developing the shoe design, that interaction between the player and the shoe designer, um, as comparing like Trey Young, who's getting his first signature shoe, to another shoe that you also mentioned in that video, the LeBron, I believe 17s, where now he's had a signature shoe for so long. Does it become really kind of more of a formality, or how do they, I guess, kind of set a new goal for each shoe and what they want to emphasize?
I think that's the one of the unique things about sports is the longer you play the game, the more refined and fine tuned your game kind of becomes, and also the changing of your needs. So Trey Young, who's
Mm.
younger now, may not need the same amount of cushioning that LeBron needs, in now that LeBron's been in the league for 18 years. So like those refinements are also being made consistently. So now the concern about LeBron is not necessarily fine tuning the performance and like the speed and agility of his shoe. It's more of we need to find something that's going to be comfortable for LeBron, that's still going to allow him to perform, but also have the thought of longevity as part of the equation. So LeBron shoes are built a little sturdier. They have a little more cushioning in them, because that's more of I would say that's more of a point of reference now for LeBron than in his earlier days when he was just like, I need something quick and fast that's going to help me get up and down the court. Now he's like, I need something quick and fast that's going to get me up and down the court, but I also need to make sure that it has the sort of cushioning that I need, so when I come down on a rebound, I'm not destroying my knees.
And can you put into context what does it mean for Trae Young to have his own signature shoe? It's not often that it's not every player gets one. It's a unique status within the NBA when an athlete gets their own signature shoe. Can you kind of explain what that symbolizes? Does that put more pressure on Trae Young as a player in terms of now he's representative of the shoe that hundreds and thousands of kids are going to be wearing on the courts?
Yeah, it's a huge deal for an athlete to get a signature shoe. As you guys mentioned, not many people actually get to have a shoe with their name on it. A lot of NBA players, they'll have their own logo or they'll endorse a shoe, but to have a signature shoe really puts Trae Young in the top echelon of basketball players. I think right now there are only, I believe, about 15 players in the NBA as a whole that actually have their own signature shoe. So he's among a very elite group, and he's entering into what they call rare air when it comes to sneakers. That's like the dream of every basketball player, is to have a shoe named after them. And like only like the top 1% of the 1% actually have the honor of having a shoe named after them.
Shifting gears, and I want to point to something you said earlier in our conversation regarding how in America sneaker culture is mostly centered around the NBA, but other parts of the world is not. Can you elaborate on that further? In terms of sneaker culture, just around the world, what are the kind of genres in terms of how that's popular and how people connect to their pair of sneakers, like where they find that connection compared to Americans that predominantly watch the NBA?
Yeah, for here in the U.S., basketball obviously has a bigger influence than it does have for the rest of the world, and that's in basketball culture, which really you can say started in the urban neighborhoods. Like the urban neighborhood is really the spark of culture in America. A lot of the trends, a lot of the things that you see happening are based on fashion trends that happened in the urban neighborhoods. A lot of it has to do with hip hop as well, which obviously came from urban neighborhoods. But around the world, that same influence is not there. And so basketball sneakers don't necessarily have the same impact or have the same cultural relevance. And so for the rest of the world, soccer is the biggest sport, hands down, like without question. And so they don't have the same sort of influences when it comes to what their off-court style is. And so trainers have become like a bigger deal for the rest of the world, whether it's a running shoe or it's a lifestyle version of a soccer shoe. That sort of culture just doesn't resonate the same here in the US as it does for the rest of the world.
And can you explain now in 2020 specifically, I see sneaker culture crossing over to other forms of entertainment I would never even conceive of in terms of sneakers being a big deal, like professional wrestling. Like there's a wrestler, Kofi Kingston, who actually has a custom designer
Yeah.
design his shoes for all of his matches, and it boggles my mind. I see even like the Bella twins, like they have their own sneakers they like, or people that I would never even think they would be into this. They are hardcore into sneakers. Can you just point to kind of this exploding to other just things that you would never conceive sneakers crossing over into pop culture? What can you I guess attest that to, you think?
I think that people like sneakers. I think a lot of people like sneakers, but it wasn't necessarily as noticeable or cool. It wasn't part of the zeitgeist, so to speak, until the last maybe 10 years. So the last 10 years, sneakers has definitely entered into the world of pop culture, where before it was a very niche sort of thing. And so now you have these people that are doing these different things that are sneakerheads. I know personally a ton of people that are sneakerheads that have different jobs, whether it's a doctor, whether it's somebody that runs a retail business, or somebody that works as a PR rep at an agency. Like there's tons of sneakerheads around the world and that are in different jobs, but now the pop culture aspect of sneaker has allowed them to almost kind of come out the closet and be like, hey, I love sneakers too. I know I didn't really talk about it before, but now it's like the cool thing to talk about, and I want you guys to know, like, that's part of my world too. I love it too. I have 100 sneakers at home. Like, I know a guy that does PR, and he loves sneakers. He absolutely loves them, but you wouldn't, based on his job title and the way he dresses when he goes to work, you wouldn't necessarily make that connection. But now you get people like Kofi Kingston, you get like the Bella Twins, you get guys that are playing video games, these gamers that are really into sneakers. It was just not something that they talked about before, or, they talked about it, but it was only within their quote unquote sneakerhead circle. Now they're able to share that message with the world because everybody is into it.
Speaking along those lines, sneakers have really expanded in terms of shoe companies giving deals to, influencers in pop culture, people who are just really big names. Like, for example, Kid Cudi, as you mentioned in your video, has a pair of sneakers. Kanye, of course, has the Yeezys. How do you see that expanding? I mean, do you think that sneaker companies are going to keep awarding like more and more shoe deals to pop culture icons, or do you see that slowing down anytime soon based on where things are going?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure where the direction of that is going to go. I think because sneakers has become such a big part of the pop culture lexicon, that they are tapping into different sources of inspiration. So that's where you get like the singers or the actors or the fashion designers coming into the world of sneakers, which is usually just more of an athletic lens or maybe possibly a music lens. So that trend has been trending for a while now. I would say, probably the last 5-6 years that's been a part of the culture. So I'm not sure exactly how long that is going to continue, but I know it does. It'll be determined by how long sneakers can remain a part of the pop culture world, and if people get tired of it that aren't really into it, or if there is someone that can bring a level of excitement to it, then it's going to continue. But as far as like a hard yes or no, this is going to be here the next 10 years, unfortunately, I'm not sure I could give a definitive answer on that
one. I can't blame you.
So in preparation of this interview, I asked one of my good buddies, he's a hardcore sneakerhead, and his response to me was his concern of this sneaker culture being destroyed by bots and the reseller market. So for like a novice like myself and Matt, can you kind of put in context, what are bots? What is the reseller market compared to just going to like a Champ Sports or just finding a pair online? Because I can kind of attest to this a little bit. Like I saw trending on Twitter, there was the Kobe Bruce Lee collaboration, and I thought those sneakers looked awesome. I love Bruce Lee, and I click on the link and they're immediately sold out. I'm like, an average Joe like me, could I ever even have a shot at even getting those like 6 months from now? So can you kind of put into context, like what is the steps of just buying a sneaker besides just going to a store? And do you think it's true that, bots in the reseller market, they pose a risk in kind of damaging sneaker culture?
Yeah, so the bot and reseller aspect of sneaker culture is something that's relatively new because of the technology age. So before, when you got sneakers, generally you got them from your local neighborhood. Every once in a while, you knew somebody on a different part of the world that could get you something. But because of the internet and social media, shoes became available to everyone. So there was a bigger opportunity for everyone to get their hands on the shoes, and more people having access to shoes, especially those that are made in a limited capacity, obviously makes it tougher and tougher to get shoes. As that situation grew, there were some enterprising entrepreneurs who found a way to use technology to their advantage that allowed them to get shoes faster than you could do it as a human when checking out with shoes. Because now a lot of shoes are available online. You buy them online. We're not going to stores as often as we were before. And so a lot of the hype stuff is purchased, right from your phone or from your computer. And so bots are basically taking advantage of technology and allowing those people to buy shoes before you could humanly buy them by automatically putting in your information or finding information out before anybody else because they're monitoring websites and getting all this information. And so it makes it frustrating for those that have been sneakerheads for a long time that were used to being able to get the sneakers that they wanted. But this is a byproduct, I think, also of shoes becoming popular. As shoes become popular in pop culture, more people are going to want them. And as it becomes more of a thing that shows you're cool, so to speak, more people are going to buy into that. So now, instead of just having the sneakerheads and the athletes that are looking for sneakers, now you have the sneakerheads, you have the athletes, and then you have the people that are using the bots and reselling the shoes, which I call entrepreneurs who are masquerading as sneakerheads and athletes.
So what advice would you give to like somebody getting into this culture for the first time? If I wanted to, like, I saw those pair of those Bruce Lee Kobe collaborations and I just don't have any way of finding them. I don't know really any of the apps. I don't know really anywhere to look. What would be kind of your advice to somebody? Hey, like I want to get into this. I think they're cool. Like what steps do you think you would give to a beginner?
So for the beginner, I would tell them to first buy what you like, not what you think everyone else is going to like. See, this is part of the frustration of the bots is that generally with the bots, they're buying all the stuff that's really hyped up. So they're buying all the limited editions and stuff like that that get a lot of buzz. But for every hype sneaker, there are 100 sneakers sitting on a shelf at Foot Locker or Finish Line or at the Nike store or at the Adidas store that you can go and buy. So people think that being a sneakerhead means having all of these hyped sneakers. I would say being a sneakerhead is just having a love for sneakers in general. And if there is a certain sneaker that you like, start by buying those. Like, don't worry about the hype stuff. If you get it, yeah, it's great. And there is a huge amount of social clout that's connected to it. But it's not necessary for you to be a sneakerhead. You're a sneakerhead by buying the things you like and collecting and wearing the sneakers that you are actually passionate about, not just the stuff that's limited edition.
And this year, 2020, it's been just a weird year just in general. How do you think the pandemic has affected just sneaker culture in general in terms of just getting those new releases? Has it primarily moved online? Has it provide any delays of any high profile sneakers that were supposed to come out and it's got delayed a few months just because of the pandemic? How has it played just sneaker culture survive just dealing with this bizarre year?
Yeah, it's been interesting because you would think people aren't wearing sneakers as much, but as far as like the hype around sneakers, that really hasn't changed much despite everything that's going on during the pandemic. That audience for sneakers, so that hunger or the appetite for sneakers is still there. That hasn't changed really at all. The biggest delays, there have been a few things that are delayed, and even still now, things are getting pushed back. I mean, early in the pandemic, you saw like release dates getting pushed back a month or a month and a half and things like that. But the appetite for sneakers still hasn't changed.
And overall, you were talking earlier about athletes involved in the creative process regarding how comfortable a sneaker is and how they want the sneaker to perform once they're out in the court. But is there kind of like a balance to be played in terms of just the everyday person who just wants to just wear a pair of LeBron sneakers? Like, they may look cool, but in application, they may not fit their needs. Is there kind of like a straddling of the line in terms of like actual athletes that, you want to wear a pair of LeBrons, but when actually using them, they may not actually fit their needs. I guess my question is, for athletes who are involved in that design process, and I guess other shoe companies, are they kind of straddling that line not only to tailor a sneaker towards that particular athlete, but also just to the consumer market as well in terms of what is comfortable and what's going to be more likely to succeed on more of a average consumer level?
Yeah, and I would take that the designers definitely have to keep that in mind, because at the end of the day, they need to sell shoes. So they need to make sure that they create a shoe that is going to work for the general public at large. So my advice always to people that are buying shoes is look at the player that your game most resembles, and that's kind of where you put your eggs in the basket as far as buying your sneaker shoes. Like, I'm not going to buy a LeBron shoe to necessarily wear on court. Like, LeBron's a much bigger player than me. He plays a different game than I do. Whereas someone like me, I would buy something more along the lines of like a Dame Lillard shoe or a Kyrie Irving shoe, or maybe like a Steph Curry shoe, because that fits my game a little more. I'll buy a LeBron just because I like them, I like what they look like, and I like to wear them just around casually. But as far as my game, I think the designers design shoes kind of based on that player profile, not specifically for that player. Each NBA player that you see, even though they have signature shoes, they also have what are called custom orthotics, where they have insoles inside of their shoes that are custom to their feet to help fine tune their shoes even more.
And one more question for you, Jock, and then we'll let you go. Just this season's coming up. I just want to get your thoughts on what you're looking forward to during the upcoming NBA season, starting around the Christmas time. Compared to the bubble, are you more looking forward to seeing the rest of the teams being involved in terms of more of a regular season format, or are you going to miss kind of that bubble, that intimate atmosphere?
So here's the interesting thing about all of this. I liked what happened in the bubble. Not necessarily that the guys didn't have access to, to move about and to get out of the bubble and, to live with their families, but the format I thought was really interesting. So now that we have all these teams coming back, it was almost, I remember last season they had these talks about doing like a tournament style format in the middle of the season, and if you made it to the tournament, or it gave you extra points for like the end of the year. So seeing almost like them gamify the season, how they did how they had to do it in the bubble, where you had these extra teams that were fighting to get into the playoffs. That was a lot more exciting to me. I don't know if it's just because I'm bored with the prior format of the NBA. So that was the thing that was the most exciting to me. So even though like the season's coming back and it's supposed to be quote unquote like a regular season, I would love to see them to implement some sort of format changes like they had to do with the bubble into the regular season, just to give it a little more umph to it, to make it a little more interesting, to make it a little more exciting.
Well, Jock, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Can you please plug where we can find you on social media, on YouTube, and any upcoming projects you have for 2021?
If they want to find me, it's all under my name, Jacques Slade. That's under Cousteau, which is Kustoo. So my handle on everything is Cousteau, which is Kustoo. But if you search my name, Jacques Slade, you should find all the stuff that I'm doing. And you'll find me on YouTube in 2021. That's where I'll be. So if you want to see what I'm up to, that's the place to check.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your insight, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been an awesome chat.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me. This is awesome. Hopefully I helped with some sneaker information. Hopefully people understand and get a better understanding of the culture now.
Oh,
Definitely.
for sure. Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you, Jacques.
No problem. Thanks, guys.